Congressman Ronny Jackson joining us now in studio. Thank you so much for your time. I always appreciate getting some of your time because I know, especially right now, you are very busy. So thanks a lot for that.
You bet.
I want to talk to you first about what happened on January 6th. I would just love for you to take me through that day because I know you went to a rally in the morning and then you were back at the Capitol when all of that started. So what happened?
Yeah, it was a crazy day. I mean, it was a little bit scary, to be honest with you. You know, I went to, like you said, I went to the rally earlier that day. The president was having a rally. I didn't really plan on going initially, but I had some constituents from Wichita Falls and from Amarillo that were in the area. They said, hey, we're down at the, at the Ellipse, and, if you can get down here, come on down and say hi. So we popped down there, but I had to be back on the floor at noon for the vote because we were voting on certifying the Electoral College votes, right? So I had to be back at noon. So I popped down there about 10:30. We stayed for about 30 minutes, and nobody was speaking while we were there. And I saw a few people I knew, but not too many, mostly Secret Service folks that I knew. And then we headed right back to the Capitol. But there was a huge crowd down there, and it was on the Ellipse, which is a big area between the White House and the Washington Monument. And as far as you could see in every direction, there were just thousands and thousands of people everywhere. Everybody had Trump, hats and Trump shirts and Trump flags and things of that nature. But it was a very festive, very peaceful demonstration. There were kids down there, and I didn't see anything at all. Everybody was smiling and laughing. It seemed like they were enjoying themselves, having a good time. So we went back to the floor of the House, and as soon as I got back there, things started happening. The Senate came in. We had a joint session. We came in, and they started going through the Electoral College votes, the Electoral College ballots, and Arizona came up, and Arizona was contested by the House and the Senate. So at that point, the rules were they broke apart. The House went back to their Senate went back to their chamber. We stayed in the House for 2 hours of debate, and then we're going to get back together and talk about it again. So we were having our debate in the House. Senate left. We were in the House. We're talking. We didn't get too far into it. Probably 4 or 5 people had spoke, and then all of a sudden, we heard a lot of commotion. You could hear like loud yelling and stuff. And about simultaneously, about that same time, you could hear the Capitol Police came into the floor of the House and started shutting all the doors. And it was just like boom, 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 boom. You could hear all the doors shutting, and then you could hear them locking them, click, 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 which was very unusual because they made a lot of commotion doing it, and they interrupted the debate, and they posted themselves on the inside with their weapons. So there had been some bomb threats at some of the House office buildings earlier in the day. So one of my colleagues leaned over and he said, hey, it's probably a bomb threat. But I knew it wasn't a bomb threat because, they wouldn't lock us on the floor of the House and post themselves on the inside with weapons if it was a bomb threat, most likely. So I figured, and I'd already heard a little bit of what sounded like yelling at a distance, that somebody was probably in the Capitol that shouldn't be in the Capitol. And then just within a few minutes, we heard like boom, 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 boom. And I knew what it was. It was tear gas being deployed. You could, I'd heard it before. And about that time, they got on the leadership up at the podium, got and said, hey, everyone get out your gas mask. You have a gas mask, get it out and get it ready to deploy. There's folks in the Capitol that shouldn't be in the Capitol. Tear gas has been deployed, and we may have to evacuate and go through an area that's been gassed. So we started getting our gas mask out. Most people didn't put it on. I, being in the military, was real familiar with them. Some folks couldn't figure out how to open them or how to get them on, so I was helping some other members open them up and showing them how to don them and things of that nature. And then right about that time, the doors to the House chamber at the back, the area where the Senate and the President and everybody comes in, like for the State of the Union, where they walk down that middle aisle before they go up to the front. That door, I happened to be sitting back there with several other Texas congressmen, with Pat Fallon, Tony Gonzalez, Troy Nails. We were sitting back there. We'd become pretty good friends, and we were sitting kind of back there in the back together. That door, there started being some loud beating on that door. Somebody was beating on that door. And then that's when we realized, wow, like they're here, right? And it started out as just somebody, sounded like they were beating on the door with their fists, but it rapidly progressed to where somebody was ramming something into the door. You could actually see the door start to buckle like they were about to bust. So we looked around, and everybody started running to the other side of the chamber, because, as far away from that as they could get. But at the time, the Capitol Police had decided that it was probably in our best interest to keep us in there because I think they didn't know where everyone was in the Capitol. They knew there were people all over the Capitol. They didn't know what a secure route to get us out of there would have been. So I think they figured it was safer at that particular time to keep us there. So we stayed in there, but everybody cleared over to the other side, over by the speaker's lobby on the opposite side of the chamber. But we were back in the back, and we realized pretty quickly that there weren't very many Capitol Police officers in there at all with us. I only saw like 3 or 4 to start with in there. And they were trying to figure out what to do. It looked like the door was about to be burst open any second. So me and the other Texas congressmen, we started getting furniture, and we just got the biggest pieces of furniture we could get, drug them, put them in front of the door, and just started piling furniture in front of the door. And then we realized, well, if they come in, how are we going to defend ourselves? Because people ask, well, why would you been doing that? But really, it really was kind of a fight or flight type of situation. And if you looked around, there was really nowhere to go. So flight wasn't really an option. So it just ended up being, fight. So we thought, well, if they get in here, we're going to have to figure. And we had no idea who was on the other side of the door. We didn't have phones or anything that we've been watching. We hadn't been watching TV or anything. We had no idea what was happening. So we decided we better find a way to protect ourselves. So we started getting some furniture. Some of the hand sanitizer podiums had hand sanitizer on the top and long stands. We broke the hand sanitizer off and broke them off the podiums, broke some legs off some of the furniture, and made what we would consider to be weapons. And we kind of got right behind the Capitol Police so that if they came through that door, we could do our best to encourage them to turn around and go away, or we could fight our way out, or whatever we needed to do. We didn't know exactly how it was all going to play out. We took our ties off because we were worried they're going to choke us with our ties and stuff like that. So we were just standing there ready. And right about that time, I bent over to knock a piece of wood off that was kind of on the bottom of my stick that was kind of in the way. And when I raised up, as I was raising up, I heard pop, 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 and the glass just started shattering, and projectiles were coming through the glass. And that's when somebody started yelling, shots fired, and we all hit the deck. And I think that's the point where the Capitol Police decided it was safer to move us out of the chamber of the House and take us down a potentially unsecured evacuation route rather than leave us there. And so that's what happened. We all ended up moving back over to that side where the Speaker's lobby was at, and they moved us out to a safe area. Now, what I didn't know is we went out the Speaker's lobby, and the Speaker's lobby is probably only about, 25, 30 feet in length, and there's a door on each end. We went out one door on one end, and it had just moments before we went out was whenever that young lady was shot on the other end of the Speaker's lobby, on the other door coming in. So that crowd that was outside where she was shot was about to enter from the back side of the House floor, and then this other crowd was entering from the other end. So we were pretty much surrounded and probably got out the only little pathway we had to get out.
That's harrowing. And so was your family with you? Because you had just been sworn in a couple of days earlier. Yeah. And I know there were a lot of members who had their families there with them. Were yours with you?
No, none of our families were in the House of Representatives with us that day. It was just the members. But my family was in D.C. with me, most of them. I mean, my older kids, they don't live there anymore. But my family saw it on TV, and of course we're terrified about what was going on. So as soon as we got to a secure location, I called my wife, I called all three of my kids, and just said, hey, if you're watching TV, I'm okay, And obviously they were like, where are you at? And we're like, well, we're not going to tell you where we're at. We're not going to talk about it on the phone or let anybody know where we're at. We're in a safe location, but we're okay. I just want to let you know I'm okay. But yeah, they were terrified. They were worried.
I can imagine. So then, fast forward a few days, and you went to President Trump's farewell, and then you attended the inauguration too. Talk about that day. You've had some major days already.
It's been some crazy times. I mean, I think there's been a lot of histories taking place over the last couple of weeks, and not all of it good, unfortunately. But yeah, that was also an unusual day. We got up that morning. We went out to Andrews Air Force Base. I don't know, there was probably like 300-400 people out there. And the president flew out on the helicopter, landed, came over and talked to the crowd for a few minutes, just told everybody thank you, said goodbye, and Mrs. Trump also came over and said a few words. Then they walked over and got on Air Force One and then flew out of there. And then we got straight back in the car, drove straight to the Capitol, and literally got to the area where the inauguration was taking place about 10 minutes before they stopped letting people in. So we barely made it. But yeah, we went to the farewell and to the inauguration back to back that day. So it was an unusual day as well.
Definitely taking part in history.
Yeah.
I want to talk to you about some of the business that Congress has been doing and some of the things that we have moving forward. Of course, our nation's still facing the COVID-19 pandemic, this public health crisis.
Right.
And I think your perspective is so invaluable as as a doctor, of course, and your medical experience and your experience in the military and having to make those decisions as we move forward through this. And I know that so many things are striated, federal, state, and local. But what are some things that you're seeing that as we move forward through COVID-19 that we could do better, that we could implement, that we could, what are some of the goals that we need to be looking for, some of those benchmarks?
Well, I think the number one thing that we need to do with regards to the COVID response right now is the thing that we should have done all along that's been a problem since day one, and that's to get the politics out of this. I mean, we need to remove the politics from this. I thought once the election was over and there was no more, there was an election on the horizon, that a lot of the politics would go away. But it seems like it hasn't. It's still out there, and there's a variety of reasons for that. But I just want, President Biden and his administration to take what President Trump left, which I think was a lot. I think President Trump did tremendous things to get us where we're at. I mean, he developed multiple vaccines via the Warp Speed program, and I say he because he's the one that came up with the Warp Speed, and he's the one that took the big risk of doing something like Warp Speed, because this was lots and lots of money that we dumped into basically prompting this private sector industry to come up with all these vaccines. And there was a big risk. I mean, if it didn't work out, it was going to be a lot of money wasted. But it did work out. And we have 2 vaccines now, 2 more on the horizon. We're going to have 4 vaccines pretty soon. We developed vaccines in 10 months, which normally would have taken 10 plus years to develop, right? And that's because a lot of the bureaucracy was cut out, a lot of the red tape was cut out, and a lot of the money was provided so that those private companies didn't have to take the financial risk, and the government bore that risk. So I would like for President Biden to take what President Trump and the Trump administration had given them and build on that. And I don't think it does anybody any good to look back and to Monday morning quarterback, what's already been done, or to look back and take credit for something that the last administration has done. There's a lot left to be done, and I think that they're well positioned to get it done. And there's a lot of people out there that spent lots and lots of time that don't have any political interest in this, but they worked really hard to make sure that we got to where we're at. And in particular, a lot of folks on the military side, because the military had been put in charge of the logistical distribution of this. So I think that's our number one goal, is to come together as one and defeat this virus. And we can do it in short order now because we have the vaccine out there. And, a lot of people have already got it. So a lot of people have recovered from it and they have antibodies. So I'm a firm believer that if you take the number of people that have antibodies and the number of people that can and will get vaccinated, we can reach herd immunity really, really quickly on this if we play our cards right.
Have you been vaccinated?
I haven't been vaccinated yet, and some of the members of my staff had been, but I purposely did not get vaccinated because I wanted to wait until my group was eligible for vaccination, because I think it's still important, because I honestly believe that, I'm 53 years old, and I don't have any comorbidities or anything. I'm relatively healthy. So I think if I do get it, my chances of dying from it are pretty small. I might get sick from it, but I'll probably recover from it. But I think that there are a lot of folks out there that aren't in that category. Older people in nursing homes and assisted living facilities, people that are immunocompromised for one reason or another, like my sister who's a renal transplant patient, people who have lots of comorbidities. Those people should get it before I get it, because those are the people that could actually die from getting it. I want all of those folks to get it before I take one of the vaccines away from them.
I think your reasoning, your logic on that is so similar to what I think a lot of other people are feeling. And, here in Texas, not everyone is eligible yet, but saying, give it to the people who really need it and give it to them quickly.
And, that's the biggest way that we make sure we have what we need as well, because if you or I get it, we might get sick and we might be at home sick for a couple of weeks, but if someone older gets it, even if they recover from it, they're likely to end up in the hospital, in the ICU, consuming lots of resources, the PPE and the nursing and the doctors and everything that we need. So that's the quickest way to keep us out of a bind as a country as well.
I want to ask you about your placement on the WHIP team with Steve Scalise. You have a lot of work to do as far as that's concerned, but that seems like an influential place that you've been placed in. Talk about that.
It is. I was really glad that he asked me to join the WHIP team. I have a lot of respect for Leader McCarthy and for Whip Scalise. And I think that they did a lot of great things to get us where we're at as a Republican Party. Coming into this election, the polls showed that we were going to lose about 15 seats in the House, and we picked up 16 instead of losing 15. That was because of the leadership of those two gentlemen. And so I appreciate what they've done, and I think being on the WHIP team is going to be great for me, being a new member of Congress, because I don't know how the legislative process works a lot, but this will really, I guess it'll be, I'll just be thrown into the fire on this one. And so we'll meet before votes every day before we have votes. We'll get together, we'll meet, we'll discuss what the big picture is and what we think we should do as a party. I'll learn a lot about the legislative process in the process, and I think it'll make me a much more effective congressman in short order.
What do you hope to, what committees would you like to be appointed to? What would you like to, focus on in this, your freshman, time?
Well, I just found out actually this morning that I got appointed to Armed Services Committee, so I'm on the House Armed Services Committee. So that'll be one. I don't know what other committees I'm going to be on. The steering committee, which picks the committees for new members, is meeting today and tomorrow, and so I'll find out. I'll get on at least one, maybe two more committees. I've asked to be on Ag. I put Foreign Affairs down as one of my potential committees if it goes that far down the path. But you know, I mean, those are the things I want to work on. I want to work on our defense. I want to make sure that I'm working on the Armed Services Committee to make sure that we have a strong national defense. That's important to me as a member of the military for 29 years. You know, I think I'm well suited to do that and be on that committee and to make a big difference. So I'm going to be working on that. I want to work on Ag issues, and that's why I've asked to be on Ag. I think I really owe it to the constituents in this district to be on Ag. This is the #1 Ag district in the state of Texas, #5 in the country. So I need to be intimately involved in anything and everything Ag. And whether or not I get on the Ag committee or not, you can bet that I will be. I will be intimately involved in all things Ag. And lastly, as a physician, I feel like I have a unique opportunity to get involved in healthcare reform. I'm going to be on the Doctors Caucus, and so I intend to work really hard on that part of it. And then the fourth thing that's kind of come from all of this that's happened over the last year or so, and specifically ever since the election on November 3rd, I think that I want to be a big part of figuring out a way that we restore election integrity. Okay, I think that 72 million people in this country feel like there may or may not have been. A lot of people feel like there was, including myself, that there was fraud in this election. To the extent that it made it, to what extent it made a difference, we don't know yet. But we need to know. We need to find this out. We need to figure out what went wrong. What can we do better next time? Because next time we have an election 2 years from now, we have to be able to reassure all Americans on both sides of the aisle that the election was fair and that one vote, every single vote counted, right? And that there was no fraud involved in it. So restoring election integrity and voter confidence has to be at the very top of what we do over the next 2 years. So those are the four things I'm going to focus mostly on.
I think, an important thing to show to our enemies, too.
Absolutely.
This is a free and fair election.
That's
and
right.
This is, an important thing.
And you make a great point. People don't understand that whenever we go at each other the way we're doing right now, it makes us vulnerable on the global stage. And people will try to take it to other countries that don't have our best interests at heart. China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. They will try to take advantage of these times like this and do something hoping that they'll get away with something they wouldn't get away with otherwise.
Yeah, seeing that weakness or potential weakness, perceived weakness.
That's right.
The last thing I want to ask you about is the news today that President Biden has lifted the ban on transgender members of the military. Mm-hmm. Would you just respond to that? What are your thoughts on that? Well,
I'm not a supporter of transgenders in the military. I just think that we have enough on our plate in the military. It adds another component to serving on active duty that I just don't think is necessary right now. I also think that, from a fiscal standpoint, as a fiscal conservative, I don't think that the taxpayers, a lot of them, want to have their tax dollars used on the transition process. And that's a lot of what happens. And when members come in and they haven't made the transition yet and they declare themselves as transgender and they want to go through that process, that takes like a year and a half to go through that process. It requires multiple surgeries. It requires hormone therapy, things of that nature. And I just feel like, that's not what the military is here. Anyone who wants to serve, that's qualified to serve, should be served. But I'm not a fan of that for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is the cost to the taxpayers that's involved in making that happen. But it's the Biden administration, and President Biden can do what he wants to do now. The old term elections have consequences, so we'll move forward, and I will support the Department of Defense in anything that they do from this point forward to make sure that we have a strong national security. But on a personal level, as a representative for the constituents of the 13th Congressional District of Texas, I don't think that that's something that I would support otherwise.
Congressman Jackson, what would you add?
Nothing. I'm just excited about being here. I'm excited about representing the 13th Congressional District, and I'm going to work hard, and it's going to be a lot of fun, I think. But it's going to be some challenges, but we're going to come together, and we're going to get past this, and our country's going to be stronger as a result of it. That's what I hope.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.